When you're working with the population of students that we're working with today, that understanding that every child learns differently and that from point A to point B isn't the same distance for all students. Understanding that the product that one student will give you may not be absolutely 100% correct, but examine it and look at it and see what they're doing and take that as insight and take that to develop further lessons. Students work in all different ways. They understand things, and sometimes I don't understand how they understand things, but have them tell you. Students love to live chat and tell each other how they solve the problem, and they have their own aha moments, and they are their own people. Just because they don't do it my way doesn't make it the wrong way.
It isn't the real thing, but it's as close to the real thing as you can get, because they are actually going through all the motions and they are performing the same kinds of tests that they would have performed if they were actually performing a scientific experiment. They're not only performing the experiments and analyzing the water quality or whatever kind of tasks that they're working on, but they are finding out the implications of the advice that they then give to somebody in that virtual world, as if they were the character that's actually doing something. For instance, if they decide that they're going to put restrictions on the Mulu tribe because they're putting nitrates and phosphates from fertilizer and cow manure into the water, if they make the recommendations to put the restriction on this tribe, then what happens is they can then see the effects 2 years in the future of what happened after they made those recommendations, and they could actually experience virtually what happens. And they could talk about, is this happening elsewhere in the world where some tribes have restrictions such as this? And what happens to the tribes? Do they suffer? Do they have poverty? Do they have limited land because of all this, because of the incursion of the national park on their land? If they decide to fund tourism, what happens? Do they get to experience the littering, the pollution that happens, the cutting down of trees, the effects on the animals in that area? Is that kind of thing happening in society now? Yes, it is.
Do I have to fund the comment?
We're working with a lot of Web 2.0 resources. I did a lot of staff development with the teachers, and it sort of took off. Teachers were kind of tired of seeing PowerPoints all the time. A lot of different disciplines were doing it. We had an English teacher doing Fahrenheit 451, and they incorporated different questions, and the students were working on glogsters, which are electronic posters. They had writing on the poster, they had visuals on the poster, they had links to other websites on the poster. And then what we did is we took all of these glogs that they made, and we would embed them on a wiki that we made for that class. And that way the teacher could go to that one wiki, the students could go to that one wiki, they could see all the other students' work, they could comment. That's the one thing about Web 2.0, it's interactive, it's collaborative. You can comment on other people's things. So they could comment on other people's work, and the teachers could grade it straight from that wiki. Another Web 2.0 tool we use a lot is VoiceThread. And it's sort of like a conversation around media. As long as you're registered on VoiceThread, you can send your VoiceThread to Aunt Tilly and she can comment. You know, if she's in New Jersey, she can comment on your VoiceThread. We have an Academy of Information Technology, and we have a sister school in China. And so what they did recently is the Chinese students were learning about comedians, American comedians. So our students did a VoiceThread in groups, on groups of 2, I believe, in a certain class. They did on comedians. So they would do a VoiceThread, they would talk, and they would talk about the comedian, and then they would be seeing pictures as you go across. And then what we're hoping for is that the Chinese then, and this is an English class in China, the Chinese then will respond on the same VoiceThread. So that's what we're waiting for now, is for them to respond, and then we'll see there and hear them.
Sometimes students can simply take an easy online assessment through Angel, a test, and we will do that from time to time, but students enjoy creating products actual pieces of work that they can share. And the laptops were very fortunate to have so many programs, from Comic Life to Keynote to Pages to iMovies to, podcasts. They can do anything. When we were first talking about what a part of a fraction makes up, and you used to get the fraction circles out or the fraction bars out, and you would talk about, this is eighths, and here I have 3/8, and here I have 1/4, and all together they make a whole. They were able to go to a website and actually they created animals. And I assigned them a number, and I said, okay, you have to create an animal worth 3, and you have to create one worth 2.5. And you can see examples of those work. But then they take screenshots of them, and they put them in Comic Life, and they can make little comics out of them. And they love stuff like that. And I can still evaluate, do they still understand the meaning of a whole and the different fractional parts that can make up a whole? It's just more fun for them. They can create a flyer on Pages. They can create a brochure. They did brochures on the properties of mathematics. Just different pieces like that the computers allow us to do that maybe, you used to do with markers or paper or pencil, but this is so much more interesting for them because this is a generation of video gamers and iPods and cell phones. And so when we come to school, if we don't have an opportunity for them to stretch like that, then they're not going to be interested. So the products that we ask for generally are driven by the student interests.
The assignment was one of two things. They could have either designed their own sand castle and then calculated the volume of sand needed to actually build the castle. And they would have done that in a program called SketchUp, which is basically sort of like a computer-assisted or CAD design program. It's very basic in terms of the tools that they get to use. It just kind of introduces them to that type of program. Or they could have written their own song and composed it and recorded it, describing how one of those formulas for area and volume of a solid works and giving an example as well. They could have just changed lyrics of a song that they know or completely rewritten it using something called GarageBand on our Macintoshes.
The surface of a cylinder may take a little time as the top and the bottom parts around the sides.
They should be able to really create something and incorporate the content, and that's what I would love to see. So I'm trying different types of things, not just iMovies. Maybe we have a program called Comic Life where they actually produce a comic book kind of thing. Can they create a story that incorporates the content in that way, where maybe it doesn't have to be a video, but it's a comic, it's some images that they put together in a story? Or with the spreadsheet programs like Excel or Numbers on our Macintosh, can they create a best fit line from some data and then really incorporate other facets of a specific real world application, not just the numbers themselves, but can they connect the content to something outside of just math? I'm kind of taking a shotgun approach, I feel like. I'm trying to do lots of different activities to see what they can really show me. Can they give me that mastery level with some type of technology?
Working with technology makes us all a little more creative. It certainly makes the students more creative. They come up with some great stuff. We also have to be more creative, and sometimes in the way we assess them. You've got process versus product. So we've got to see that sometimes the process is what you're working with. How they do it, are they learning this, are they understanding what a wiki is and how to put something on there? And then, of course, you have to evaluate the product. So we have to think differently as well. We have to be a little more creative in how we assess things. And I think we're working through that as we go.